Cassandra Gandara will be presiding over the meeting, your Mayor Pro Tem. It's Tuesday, October 10th, 2023. It's a little after 1, like 1:10. We had a closed session earlier that delayed us. If you would please stand so we can recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Amy, are you on? We do Pets of the Week now via Zoom. Amy? I'm hearing no Amy, so let's move on. We don't have Jobs of the Week today. Next up is our 3.1 ARPA Ed proposal. And we have Irene Barra and Chris Faber.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. Chris Faber with Economic Development. We are going to talk to you today about the repurposing of some ARPA funds. Okay. Before I turn it over to Irene to get into the details, I just wanted to give Council a recap of the background and how we got to where we are today. The city was allocated a little over $24 million through the U.S. Treasury for ARPA funds related to COVID relief. $10.4 million was set aside for community and economic development initiatives. And of that, the council awarded $1 million to the Community Foundation of Southern New Mexico on behalf of Bitwise for workforce development related projects. Over the summer, Bitwise filed for bankruptcy, and so they are no longer coming to Las Cruces and opening up their operations. So as a result, City Manager's Office recommended submitting a new slate of workforce development programming. This was presented at the EDPRC last month, and it is here to you in front of you today for a work session. Irene will go over all the different programs at this point in time, but here's just a kind of a 30,000-foot view of the different areas that we were trying to accomplish with this funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, Irene.
My water.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit, so I feel like I'm going to get a dry mouth here in a bit. All right. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, Councilors. Irene Barra with Economic Development. When we were first tasked with coming up with new workforce development projects, we wanted to take into consideration how our community and our residents were still being impacted by the pandemic. And in doing so, we identified the following areas. First, our most vulnerable residents are still struggling to secure and maintain employment and housing. Our parents and our families are still struggling to find childcare. And lastly, we saw a need to expand programs and opportunities that would allow for upskill training for our workforce. The programs that we are proposing today provide real solutions to address these challenges. The first project that we are proposing is the Transitional Job Training Program. This is a 4 to 6 week training program that will provide assistance and training to those at or below the poverty level, as well as those experiencing housing insecurity. We hope to train 150 participants over the next 3 years with the goal of re-entering the workforce. In addition to training, clients will receive individual case management, as well as assistance with job search and job placement, and a stipend at the completion of training. Since 2020, labor force participation rates have dropped, while numbers of those experiencing housing insecurity and those at or below the poverty level have risen. According to a May 2023 report by the New Mexico Legislative Finance Committee, New Mexico has seen a 48% uptick in those experiencing housing insecurity. The report points to several causes of housing insecurity, including disconnection from formal employment, as well as lower educational achievements. Recent data provided by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that those with less than a high school education are experiencing a higher rate of unemployment at close to 10% compared to those with a bachelor's or greater at roughly 3.8%. Labor force participation rates are also significantly higher for those with bachelor's degrees or more, at more than 84% participation compared to those with less than a high school education at around 55%. It is essential that we work to provide opportunities for our most vulnerable and underserved populations to gain the skills and education needed to re-enter the workforce. Doña Ana Community College Career and Life Skills Academy will customize training to help participants build a blueprint for employment, developing a personalized plan for long-term employment and career pathway options, emphasizing personal discovery, career exploration, financial and computer literacy, self-advocacy, and community engagement. Similar initiatives funded by the U.S. Department of Labor and the U.S. Department of Housing and Development over a 5-year period saw 59% of participants within 1 year of completing training obtaining employment, and another 24% entering competitive employment, and 4% becoming self-employed. Paid employment, along with healthcare and housing, plays a crucial role in eradicating poverty. Research has found that economically secure families with as little as $400 in savings are better able to weather the ebbs and flows of income drops and unexpected expenses. They are also less likely to rely on local services for housing support and cash assistance. By addressing both the labor force shortage and the increasing number of individuals at or below the poverty line, we are working to advance the economic mobility of our residents and making a positive impact on the financial health and long-term viability of our community. With this particular project, we will be partnering with Doña Ana Community College. We are allocating $240,000 for this project over a 3-year period. When looking to address the issue of the child care shortage, there are 2 goals that we had in mind. First, we wanted to provide support to those businesses that were able to weather the pandemic and help them build back. The second was to look at the number of providers that we lost as a result of the pandemic and build back capacity through them as well. Through the Child Care Provider Micro Grant, we will be providing micro grants to those child care providers that were negatively impacted due to or during the pandemic to assist with loss of income, loss of staffing, and the decrease or increase of costs due to the pandemic. Economic Development Department will be taking the lead on this project. We are recommending $150,000 for this project. Measurable outcomes that we are looking at include the allocation of funding, the number of new staff hired, the number of children and families served, increase to services provided, and increase in revenue. When families do not have the child care they need, the implications are far-reaching. There is a greater economic impact to be considered. A study commissioned in 2022 by Ready Nation, Council for a Strong America, which is a national bipartisan and nonprofit organization, conducted a national survey of working parents. The survey provided evidence of the various ways in which parents' time and effort at work, productivity, and career opportunities are diminished by problems with childcare. Merging the survey with labor market data, the following are the costs to families, businesses, and taxpayers as a result of insufficient childcare. Families lose an average of $5,500 per working parent in lost earnings in more time looking for work. Across the 14 million parents of children under the age of 3, that equates to $78 billion per year. Businesses lose an average of $1,600 per working parent in reduced revenue and an extra cost in hiring. The annual burden of that to businesses is $23 billion. Taxpayers lose an average of $1,400 per working parent in lower income tax and sales tax revenue. In annual, that amounts to $21 billion each year. In total, the childcare crisis has cost $122 billion in lost earnings, productivity, and revenue every year, of which New Mexico has seen a loss of $586 million. The skills children learn in quality childcare programs helps to set them up to excel in school. And as jobs get more complex and technologically advanced, businesses will need highly educated and well-rounded employees to succeed. We need to prepare our children for the workforce of tomorrow, and high-quality care for infants and toddlers can help forge the steps to that path. Ensuring that parents can access childcare so they can work and build successful careers to support their families strengthens our community, the workforce, and the economy. The next project that we are proposing also addresses the issue of childcare. This project is the Childcare Business Accelerator Program. Funding for this will work to increase the number of providers currently in the city of Las Cruces. Through this program, participants will learn best practices, including steps to starting a business, bookkeeping and accounting, marketing and branding. They will also understand state regulations and licensing processes, food programs, childcare assistance, and be connected to helpful resources and caregiver networks. Partners that we will be working with include the Doña Ana County Early Childhood Education Coalition, the Small Business Development Center, and WEST. We are recommending $150,000 for this project. Initial measurable outcomes that we will be taking into consideration include the number of newly established providers, the number of staff hired, the number of families served, and the number of children served. Prior to the pandemic, Las Cruces residents struggled to find childcare. The pandemic only exacerbated that shortage. The state of New Mexico recently extended the free childcare program for those families at or below the 400% poverty level. Although this will help to address the issue of cost, the lack of providers and long wait lists by registered and licensed childcare centers remains an issue. The New Mexico Early Childhood Education and Care Department estimates as many as 72,000 children under the age of 6 around the state are eligible for free childcare based on income. But only about 26 of those families are receiving those services. Of those families not receiving services, lack of providers has been a major issue. Trends in the number of licensed and registered childcare centers and homes in Doña Ana County saw a 37% decrease between 2020 and 2022. In a 2022 needs assessment conducted by NMSU Center for Community Analysis and the Doña Ana County Early Childhood Coalition found that 47% of parents are still in need of childcare services. There are currently 39% of children under the age of 5 living below the 100% poverty level, and an additional 66% of children under the age of 6 living below the 200% poverty level. There are roughly 13,498 children under the age of 5 in Doña Ana County in need of childcare services. Working in partnership with the Doña Ana County Early Childhood Coalition, using research-based curriculum and leveraging the expertise of the Small Business Development Center and WEST, the Child Care Business Accelerator Program will provide the foundational knowledge and support for entrepreneurs to increase the number of much-needed childcare providers in the city of Las Cruces. When looking at programming to expand upskilled training, there were 2 things that we identified. First, we wanted to try and provide support and expand the current apprenticeship programs that we have in place. Secondly, we want to, and this is a long-term goal, increase the number of apprenticeship programs that are currently in the city of Las Cruces. Funding for the pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship program will expand currently the Southern New Mexico Independent Electrical Contractors Apprenticeship Program, including upskill training for licensed journeymen. Funding will also support the pre-apprenticeship pilot program and transportation needs for Las Cruces Public Schools participants. Partners in this will be the Southern New Mexico Independent Electrical Contractors, the Las Cruces Public Schools Academic Career Experience Program, and the New Mexico Workforce Connection Office. We are budgeting $300,000 for this project. Initial measurable outcomes that we are taking into consideration include the completion of program hours, proficiency in skilled trade, proficiency in knowledge of industry and occupation, certification obtainment, and employment attainment. Apprenticeship programs are an industry-driven, high-quality career pathway where employers can develop and prepare their future workforce. Since 2012, there has been a 64% increase in new apprenticeship programs across the country, including 2 million new apprentices. There have been 396,000 graduates of apprenticeship programs within the last 5 years, and 14,700 new programs created, of which 94% of graduates retained employment after completion of training, earning average annual salaries of $70,000 a year. Of the 67 registered apprenticeship programs in New Mexico, only 2 are located here in Las Cruces. 2. The first is the data scientist program offered through the Doña County Community College. The second is the Southern New Mexico Independent Electrical Contractors. SNMIEC is one of 50 chapters nationwide and has been offering training for over 30 years through a 4-year apprenticeship and training program. The pre-apprenticeship program Career Pathways offers participants ages 16 to 24 years old to earn $15.90 an hour and gain up to 400 hours of training. Students gain hands-on experience and mentorship from industry professionals. Over the next 3 years, funding will help support SNMIEC's expansion to train new workers, apprentices, journeyman electrician, continuing education and safety training, as well as support the pre-apprenticeship pilot program in Las Cruces, including transportation needs for pre-apprentices. Funding for these credentialing programs will help move people quickly into high-needs jobs while obtaining valuable training and earning family-sustaining wages while building a highly trained and ready workforce. The final project that we are proposing is a manufacturing and advanced manufacturing training. Funding will help assist employers in upskilling their current workforce with existing industry certifications surrounding automation and advanced manufacturing. The pandemic had a significant impact on a number of industries, including the manufacturing industry, affecting access to materials and disrupting supply chains. The industry, however, used this disruption to seek advancements in new technologies in integrating advanced and computerized processes. The shift to advanced manufacturing processes has created the need to upskill our current workforce. Through this program, we will be working with Mesilla Valley Economic Development Alliance and Doña Ana Community College's manufacturing program. We are recommending $100,000 for this project, and initial measurable outcomes we are taking into consideration are the number of employers served, number of employees trained, increase in skills and proficiency in skills training. Manufacturing roles of the future will require digital skills and the ability to problem solve. Today's logistics coordinator is tomorrow's logistician. Today's maintenance technician is tomorrow's automation technician. Today's process technician is tomorrow's sustainable manufacturing technician, and today's operator is tomorrow's advanced machine operator. Since 2020, the demand for these roles has increased. Logisticians have seen a 54% growth rate, with wages ranging from $14 to $39 an hour. Automation technicians have seen a 67% growth rate, with wages ranging from $26 to $39 an hour. Sustainable manufacturing process technicians have seen a 35% growth rate, with wages ranging from $14 to $35 an hour. And advanced machine operators have seen an 18% growth rate, with wages ranging from $15 to $16 an hour. The report estimated an existing labor force of roughly 560,000 that are currently supporting production output, with another 27,000 having transferable skills. With access to a workforce pipeline, educational institutions available to provide the necessary training, and a region with one of the largest manufacturing and distribution centers in North America, investing in advanced manufacturing training would enhance the region to attract intelligent manufacturing. Working in partnership with Movida and DCC, this project will focus on assisting employers in upskilling their current workforce to gain the training and certifications to meet the current and future demands of the manufacturing industry. In total, we are recommending 5 projects with a total budget allocation of $940,000, with an additional $60,000 reserved for additional programming or administrative costs. Our hope is to turn these pilot programs into permanent programming to continue to assist our residents in the city of Las Cruces. At this time, I'd also like to recognize the partners that have been involved in the development of these very important programs. Their knowledge and expertise has been very instrumental, and I have been incredibly grateful for the support. Mary with DACC, Davin with Movida, Gentry Roberts with Southern New Mexico Independent Electrical Contractors, Jeff Waugh with the Career Readiness Student Success Program and his team, Joanne with SBDC, Umberto with West, Daisy Lira, who is one of the members of the Doña Ana County Early Childhood Coalition and the New Mexico Workforce Connection staff. And with that, I stand for questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody. Thank you, Irene. Councilor Flores.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much, Ms. Parra, for your presentation. It was very good, very thorough, and the numbers look good, forthcoming at least. Now, you say that the industry, all these industries, there's demands for a certain workforce, and we're owning up, or we're going in that direction of developing a workforce that is consistent with the demand, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And are there any studies that show that most households there's maybe all the adults in that household are working to support the family? Are there any studies in that regard, or any information that can be gathered in that regard?
Depending on the industry, we could probably find some information. If there's a specific occupation that we're looking at, there's definitely demographic information available, either through the Bureau of Labor Statistics, through the state workforce, quarterly labor report reviews. We could definitely find that information for you.
Well, thank you. It would be great. And the reason I'm asking is because I brought this up at our Economic Development Policy Review Committee, and you were there, Davin was there, Mary was there, Chris was there, and a few others were there. Sergio, I think, was there, and Katrina. What concerns me is that more people, adults in a household, are working outside of the home. Mm-hmm. And there's a need for childcare. And childcare is usually not affordable. And my fear is that children will be left home alone. And I've heard of and know of families where a child as young as 5 is left to tend for a toddler, maybe even younger. Mm-hmm. And what I raised is, and I always look at Davin. Davin, you have to do this. To have businesses, manufacturers, whatever we bring into the city, and maybe existing ones too, to provide in-house childcare. And I think, and so thank you so much for emphasizing that and bringing all those stats on that, because it is very difficult, and I shared this before. I mean, I had a car. Childcare wasn't very far from my house. I also had someone come in and help when my youngest was still a toddler. So, I mean, I was very fortunate and very privileged for that. But most people aren't that fortunate. And the way things are today, people don't have a choice but to work. Every adult in that household is working, and children are left alone. So if we could get those stats, if you could give them to us or do another presentation on that, that would be great. And I would like to, as a matter of policy, just like to put that as an ask or maybe a requirement. If you want a business in our city, you have to provide in-house childcare. And because some of our businesses, as we've spoken about this before, would be in the West Industrial Park area. Right. And that's not really accessible. No. I mean, even on a bus, there's no public transportation that goes out there. So those are the issues that I see, and we really have to take care of our children.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Flores, I think the more that we can continue to work with our local chambers of commerce and our businesses to find out how we can partner to address that issue, the better served our residents will be. Absolutely.
Great. And DACC is a big help, too.
Yes, they are.
Thank you very much, Ms. Parra. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flores. Councilor Bencomo.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Irene. I continue to be profoundly impressed and grateful for our economic development team. Thank you for this very thorough and thoughtful presentation. I really appreciated it. Oh gosh, where do I start? Okay, I'm just so impressed by all of these programs. I think from the very beginning, when we received this huge ARPA allocation, it was just a huge opportunity for our community. I really was of the belief that how do we make it go the furthest with the most impact? And I love all 5 projects, and I am curious about taking this $1 million and sort of dividing it up into these 5 projects. And I'm by no means saying let's maybe focus on a couple and fund them more, because I feel like you've done your research, but can we have that conversation a little bit? Can we just talk about your thought process in terms of these 5? Because I'm sort of here like with the tension of, oh my God, they're so incredible, and how do we not dilute this money and make it go the furthest that it can? And if you feel like funding these 5 projects is that, then I'm all for it. I do just want to open up that conversation.
Sure. Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Becoma, I do appreciate that question, and that was definitely questions that we were asking in the very beginning. We were looking forward to the opportunity to work with Bitwise and to help their apprenticeship program be a success. When this opportunity came back to us, we were also very grateful that we not only felt like there was one program that could do some good, but that there were several, and that there was not just one partner that we could be working with to make an impact. There were several, and that in the larger scope, we would be making a larger impact by trying to create more programming to assist more residents. In doing so, in identifying these very specific programs, we were also very mindful that the participants of all of these programs could also benefit from the others, right? So those that were participating in the transitional job training program could also benefit from the child care programs, could also benefit from the apprenticeship programs. So we were very mindful that they would also be very complementary of one another. And so I think the idea of wanting to maintain the 5 in total, that was really the driving force for us, was we could see that they would be working collectively and complementary with one another.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
Oh, it totally does.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think I just mainly wanted to get like I feel like you're very confident that these 5, this is a good use of this $1 million. So that's sort of what I was trying to get at, to ease my own internal tension. I do want to just ask you, the 2 first programs, number 1 and number 2 in our
Yes.
packets, are incredibly well thought out. And so I'm just curious, have you just been working on these a little bit longer than the other 3? Because I mean, you have on here like estimated total number of clients served. It's like very thorough, and the other 3 are still pretty thorough, but not as much as the first 2.
Sure. Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Bencoma, I appreciate that question. Yes, the first 2 programs I've actually been researching for over a year now to see how we could fund them internally. So when this funding came up, these were the first 2 at the top of my list. That's not to say that the other programs would not be ready to go as early as January 1. The partners are very confident, based on their knowledge and expertise, that we would be able to do that.
I see some partners in the back just going like this. So
Yes.
I appreciate, again, the further confidence in, honestly, my questions are simply just to be even more impressed with you all, because it seems like you've really thought this out. So I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I guess my last question, a couple of last questions, perhaps even given the last 60,000, I'm curious about like marketing. How are we going to make sure that the people that need to hear about this are hearing about these opportunities, number 1, and then number 2, I'll just throw both of them at you. When can we expect an update, a report back from some of these?
So we definitely wanted to make sure that we had a bit of cushion, so that 60,000 will definitely help with any marketing that we're going to be doing. There's going to be cross-promotion also with all the different partners involved. Again, because these programs are all very complementary, it's not going to hurt to promote one over the other. I think clients can benefit from all of them. So having more individuals involved in the promotion of that, also working with our counselors to help promote it with their constituents and their districts. We're also hoping to leverage your connections as well. In terms of coming back, could you clarify your question as far as
When
an
would you
update?
expect the first time you report back to the council on any of the particular projects?
So we're hoping to launch these programs January 2024. And depending on the length of time for the different programs, there'll be periodic updates there'll be evaluations taking place, especially on the new programs. So there'll be regular updates being provided as often as council is hoping to receive them.
Okay, I'd like to have more question, but only because you made me think of one. I had just read some stuff about potential clawbacks from the federal government on unspent ARPA dollars. Have you looked into that? Is this timeline still within?
We would still be able to allocate those funds far within that timeline, absolutely,
Okay,
yes.
great. And then last thing I'll say, I just, and this is just one story, but I've just never forgotten it. And it was, I was invited to participate in this listening session with Jardín de los Niños and their family prosperity program. And there was this one mom who was talking about, she said, I haven't been able to finish my GED in years because I have multiple jobs and sometimes I can't get childcare for my kids. And so it's just taken me such a long time to finish. And she was talking about it from a place of shame. And that happened a couple of years ago and I've never forgotten that because I think, I'm certain it's not the experience. I'm certain it's the experience of many, many women, but especially caretakers in our community. So I really do appreciate the thought that you've put into these programs, Irene and the rest of the team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bencomo, Councillor Graham, Councillor Beda.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you so much for the presentation. Was doing some reading this morning and realizing workforce development training is such a huge task. And I just read something that I hadn't thought of, that we are trying to train people for jobs that we don't even know exist yet, because the way that technology is changing so quickly. It's not just trying to predict the sorts of jobs we already know about, we're trying to make people ready to flex and adapt with an economy and a world and a technology landscape that is just so malleable. So I really appreciate the nuts and bolts put into this. One question on Project One. Make you flip back through a lot of slides. So this one is definitely a little more open than the others in terms of it's not tied to any specific industry, and I'm not quibbling with that. Is there a possibility of working with local employers to create programs where we know we have jobs waiting? Because I'm just from my other gig, some of the best scenarios are an employer tells you exactly what they're looking for, you help the person get those exact skills, and they transition seamlessly into a job at the end. Do we have any ideas for partnerships on that?
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Graham, yes, and I thank you for that question. We have been in conversation with different businesses from the community. We've been communicating with our chambers of commerce. We were just really sort of waiting for the green light to be able to say, we're ready to do this, to be able to bring them into the fold. But there are a number of opportunities within this program that we are going to be inviting businesses to participate, either on panel discussions to be able to talk about what the culture is within that particular industry or their particular business, providing opportunities for networking, as well as even job shadowing. So we are absolutely wanting to make sure that that's going to be a primary component of this program.
Okay, wonderful. Exactly what I would have wanted to hear. And also to hear you talking about the culture of workplaces. I think soft skills is now like a outdated term. I hear 21st century skills now. But again, I think anything that can make the programming specific to workplaces and work cultures that folks are going to transition to locally is all the better. And then finally, not a question, but more of just using my soapbox up here. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We hear a lot about, what we probably hear the most about up here is crime, the problems in our city, and what are we doing? This is what we're doing. These kind of programs dealing with root cause. I'm going to borrow a phrase from my esteemed colleague, addressing root cause problems with long-term solutions, but also with short-term strategic programming to make folks' lives better right now. And thank you for being a part of that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Councillor Abeyta.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And thank you so much for all these projects. And I do like that you looked at it really in a holistic way. As we know, during COVID, all the kids were sent home. I was one who had 3 kids, including a kindergartner at the time. And what I found in that community is a lot of individuals had to leave the workforce or adapt in different ways and change their whole career trajectory.
Yeah.
Getting back into things has been very difficult for a lot of people, and in particular women, who oftentimes had the greater burden of that child care issue. And so I like looking at that we're addressing and making sure we're helping not only with just larger institutions for childcare, but more of the at-home facilities.
Yes.
And I'm hoping this will give rise to care facilities that look at non-traditional hours for childcare too, so that we're looking at overnight type cares or evenings. That way we can address different types of workforce as we're growing that too. And I want to ask really, do we have any plans on any sort of the long-term tracking of like business retention? Like how, after we do this training, looking back in another 5 years, seeing if these businesses are able to stay sustainable?
Absolutely. Mayor Pro Tem, Councillor Abeyta, I appreciate that question. Part of the programming, for especially the pilot programs, are going to have that follow-up component. Not only just over a 5-year period, but within the first year, we want to be going back to these businesses and these employers to find out what the successes have been. Because again, we want to make these permanent, so we want to find out what's working and what's not, and to be able to adjust where necessary.
That's great, thank you. And even, I would say, for the job training programs, to see how many individuals stayed in the profession that they went into that was based on the training, or if to see if they had to transition to something else.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Councillor Abeyta. Okay, I want to speak to the first project
Okay.
and the mention of personal, I guess, almost like I'm going to talk social work terms,
Sure.
treatment plan, kind of a case manager. Who have you identified as the agency to do that, or will it be internal to DACC?
It'll be internal to DACC, but also partnering with the organizations whose clients we've already identified would be a good fit. So it's going to be a multiple, right? So whatever DACC can address with them, what they're not already receiving with their nonprofit organization or assistance through the New Mexico Workforce Connection Office, we will ensure that they are receiving that support that they need, specific to their needs.
Okay. And then I wanted to move into the child care provider, the microgrant program.
Yes.
And then the child care accelerator program, something that's really near and dear to me given my experience in the child welfare arena, right? And why this is so important to reduce child abuse and neglect, and unfortunately sometimes we lose kids to people who are not fit, right, to take care of children. And I think parents are finding themselves, single parents especially, I need to work, but I'm going to leave my child with this individual who maybe they have not, know too well and have sort of the training, if you will.
Absolutely.
And so this is really important to me, and I know, and I'm probably getting too much in the weeds, but I think I said more specifically at our policy review committee that I feel really strongly that we have partners in community that have been working on this for a number of years, Engage Partnership being one of them, and I know I see Dr. Winters in the audience, and would really like to hear from her and a number of them about how they plan to sort of move through this. I think this is of all of them are important, but this to me is something that we've been working on decades, right?
Yeah.
We know what the numbers are. We know that there is more in-house programming than there is childcare, right? Like bricks and mortar, if you will. But they've had a real difficult time. But we also know that we don't pay them enough money,
Right.
and so I want to know what those thoughts are about how we're going to move in the direction of trying to mitigate some of these issues. Is it going to be? I notice you have some outcomes that have been listed here around staff and clients, and how many will be in-house, how many will be child care sort of centers, if you will. I wonder if those things have been thought out. And really, I don't see engage here, but I think that is, they've been doing this for years. They're
Yes.
a collective impact model that have seen such wonderful results. They already have the programming in place, or
They do.
and not so much the programming in place, but the infrastructure in place
Yes.
and the research done.
Mayor
I
Pro
know
Tem,
that was a lot.
it was-
Sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent. but-
That's okay, that's okay. So, Mayor Pro Tem, in talking to members from the coalition, there is a wealth of information. I'm still learning from them. They've been in the trenches for years, like you said, and they are the experts on the ground. When we were talking about the Business Accelerator Program in particular, one thing that kept coming up was not just wanting to provide information on how to operate and facilitate a child care center, but how to provide quality care and what that looks like. Even for those who currently have a registered business or a licensed center, what does quality care look like? But especially for those registered providers, which are the home care providers, the abuelitas and the tias that are taking care of kids, what does that look like? And if they've never really received that kind of training, putting kids in the living room in front of the TV to go and cook dinner or to go cook lunch, that's actually something that they really shouldn't be doing. That's not to say they're doing it to purposely endanger the child, but understanding what quality care looks like is what this program is going to help them understand. And so leveraging the expertise of those members from the coalition that are helping to develop this program are really going to take that issue into consideration, is providing that quality care and encouraging that to be the standard across the board for providers here in Doña Ana County and the city of Las Cruces. I'm not sure who is here. Did you want to hear from folks?
Yeah, I think it's important. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Angela Garcia. I actually own the Toy Box Early Learning Centers here in town, and I'm actually the president of Full Circle, which is an advocacy and community service group here in southern New Mexico.
Cool.
So we met Ms. Irene and were introduced to this project more recently, and with that particular focus in mind of how do we ensure quality. A lot of our members are home providers, and a lot of them don't have information or resources that allow them to have specific trainings or have specific supports within their homes to be able to ensure quality programs are existing within their programs. They are crucial to the infrastructure of childcare. I think City Councilor Abeta mentioned it earlier, having that outside hour care, having those smaller ratios. That's really important when you're talking about a center like mine. Some children can be overstimulated in a bigger group, so these are very important parts to our overall holistic approach of childcare. However, they are often don't have as much access to different resources or different quality trainings, different things that we do at centers. So it is the hope for us to join the city in partnering on that specific issue of quality. How can we help support them at home so we can support the children in their programs?
Thank you. And then how are we addressing, because I know there's such a need and a lack of quality care, like the graveyard shift, right? And that seems to be ever right issue that I know that you're experiencing. And I mean, who wants to do that during graveyard, right? But it's necessary. So and the swing shift, that's true, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm really particularly interested in hearing what maybe is some thought around that, Irene, or whoever wants to answer that.
I'm so sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, I was talking to Berta. Could you repeat that? My apologies.
Just more about the providing childcare in sort of those different hours, non-traditional hours, right? Like swing shift and graveyard shift.
So, Mayor Pro Tem, part of the programming, or the structure of the programming, is going to be focusing on two main specific target populations. First, it's those established registered home providers, right, to help them really try to fine-tune how they're operating their centers. But the second is also for those aspiring entrepreneurs who are interested in starting a program to help them understand where that need is and where the gaps are, and to maybe look to consider to build their programs around those areas where we don't have as many that are meeting those late hour needs, that are over hour needs, so that the program in general is going to establish or to address the needs that our parents have in the community. So it's not just the 8 to 5 provider. It's helping them understand that there's a need here, and if you're available, if you have the resources to do it, this is where we need you to fill that need for our community.
If I can share a personal experience.
Of
So
course.
I opened the Toy Box 2 off of Roadrunner in 2019. It was my intention to have a 24-hour childcare center because of the need in our community. Unfortunately, when we were building, we had some issues with, they were going to require me to have a $30,000 fire sprinkler system thing installed because I now was going to be considered something other than childcare. It was something overnight. I wasn't quite sure exactly, but I'll be honest, I couldn't afford it, so I couldn't do it. So I think that would be great to address some of those things in these conversations of barriers to providing these overnight care for providers like myself even. While we're creating capacity in homes, that's very crucial, but it could be greater capacities if we could get the barriers down for a lot of providers that might want to do it in a bigger setting.
I appreciate that. It's really thoughtful. I didn't know that piece, and I think that's a great thing to remember as we move forward. Appreciate that very much. And then I want to hear from our folks from Jeff Wah and others in terms of what is the thought there, Irene, related to the programming and transportation. And I know he's been working, the group has been working quite a bit on that, and I want to give him an opportunity to speak.
Good afternoon, Councilor Gondra, Pro Tem Gondra. I'm Jeff Wah. I'm one of the career specialists with the ACE team, and I brought with no.
Come over. Don't be shy.
You're going to see a lot of them, just so you guys know.
Yeah.
Now we'll just let the whole city know I'm retiring in December, so
Okay,
they're my
Jeff.
replacements.
Come on.
They don't seem too excited right now, but we're
No.
good. I just told them earlier today, I said, hey, we're going to a city councilor kind of work session today. What? So yes, we're good though. So we've talked about it a few times. The hard part is January 1. I'll be honest with you, finding kids right now that don't have cars that aren't in our program is kind of hard because they're in the middle of a schedule. So it's not like the university where now we go in the second semester and everyone goes and redoes the schedule. They're locked in, whether it's physics, it's all year. So we're trying to identify those kids. That's our main thing right now. If it was the beginning of the year, there's hundreds of these kids. There's not, it's impactful. As you guys know, across the county, it's getting kids to experiences, getting them to jobs. I know that's kind of what I've heard about everything is getting them there. That's what we're looking at. So I think a couple of our focus that we kind of talked about, you have an amazing guy working for the city. His name's Ryan Steinmetz. He's amazing. He is like the greatest thing for us because we work together and we work through some of those problems that we've had through going through it. It's just been great. So in my mind, what I would like to see is that group of kids kind of dropped off down here at City Hall and then moved around through city departments here, but also all the way over to the fire department with Chief Smith's group and seeing because he's taken 3 kids this year, but usually at 6, we're kind of down a little bit. But then all the way through the downtown mall, because I know when Chris was working with Downtown Partnership, we had a lot of kids working all through there. So I would think this would be one hub where there would be a little bit of more support because that's kind of what we're looking for is kids need support. Someone, a mentor to say, hey, maybe you should do this. So I think that's a big part of what we're looking at in the initial phases. In the next phase, it is working with the hospitals, and that's why Mr. Ogas is here because, and Ms. Knight, I forgot to introduce you. Oh God, that's awful. Huh? That's Mr. Ogas. and he does a lot of our medical placements, and Miss Rachel Knight, she does a lot of our ag placements. She'll oversee, she's kind of replacing me, she's going to oversee kind of the whole thing. But getting kids to the hospitals to be CNAs before they graduate. We want kids to be EAs before they graduate from high school. So in that way they enter and become a teacher just like anything else. I know we've worked with the civilian patrol and doing some of those summer police officer things. I know we have a bunch of those. So we're trying to build those up. So the goal of our program is to not just graduate, but graduate ready to work. And what we've noticed, and I know it kind of ties in what you talked about, is, and I know that you see the ones without a degree not getting paid as much over time. What we're noticing is that if they come out with a skill, they're going to go to the next step. They don't stop. But if they don't start with a skill, then they just don't know what the next step is. So what our thing is exposing them. I know that Mr. Ogas currently has 2 students in the pharmacy tech program at Mesilla Valley Pharmacy. We're trying to find the local ones that can work with our kids. The local businesses are the lifeline to ACE. So that's why I would say dropping them off here and dispersing them in this area would be very helpful to us. Does that kind of answer that part?
You did awesome. I love the detail. Thank you.
On Friday, just so everyone knows, you're all invited at the mall. We're having our Build My Future event, and I don't know if that's gotten out a lot. That is a hands-on job fair. So we'll have 800 students 500 from LCPS, but we've invited Silver City, Hatch, and Gadsden, and they will come, and the contractors do the work and with the kids. So they actually learn and see what that job fair looks like. Our kids are encouraged to bring resumes because they're hiring. So there's courage to talk to contractors and find out what that next step is. So that's Friday the 13th at the mall, 9 to 2.
Mesilla Valley Mall?
Mesilla Valley Mall.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to say behind you anything? Okay.
They don't talk. They don't talk. They're going to
Okay.
have to.
Thank you,
All
Jeff.
right. Thank
Appreciate
you. Well,
Irene, and then the last question is that I brought up is an evaluation component. Like, how do we know that this is working? How are we, because people will ask, you've given $1 million to these programs. How do we know that we're improving skill sets, upskilling, those sorts of things? What are you prepared to tell me? I hope something great.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm actually going to let Chris field that question.
Hello, everyone. Chris Faber again. So, my apologies, just got a thing in my eye. So I've been talking with Leanne Demush in Finance on this component, and I believe, yep, there she is back there. So, in our discussions, it didn't seem like funds for evaluation could come out of the ARPA funds directly, so we've been looking for other paths to fund these evaluation sources. So we're working together on that piece to not only provide some more in-depth evaluation of this program, but potentially other ARPA programs as well. So we're looking for the funding for that and then trying to identify what that looks like. Since the last EDPRC, Irene did reach out to someone at NMSU that does do evaluations and got a rough estimate for what it would cost to do this. So we're trying to look to see if we could find funds that would not only cover that, but potentially some of these other ones. So it's a separate conversation from this specific funding item, but we're definitely exploring those options as well.
Yeah, I appreciate doing the research to have that prepared for us today. I think it's so important because if you want to, and I heard the word sustain, right? Sustain these projects moving forward. I really feel that we need to be able to show, right, that we've made a difference in a variety of ways, and not just like number of clients. I mean, I think we need enough qualitative, quantitative information that I bet the Beckys would appreciate because they do that kind of work. We all would, but I just, often I get frustrated that we don't have sort of that at our fingertips. And we get a lot of pressure up here as to why are you spending money on this, and poverty and crime. And I truly believe, and I won't get on my soapbox because Councilor Graham did a very good job of explaining. I feel this is, yeah, there is. I mean, I just feel this is the way in conjunction with our Lift Up program and scaling that out. We're very committed to addressing poverty, and this is the way to do it. And we know these are all the elements that will play a huge part moving forward. So appreciate you both very much, and everybody that came today. Is there any other questions?
Just a big thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes,
I have
actually.
one more thing I wanted to add. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just have one more question, but you go
Yes,
first.
go ahead.
Chris.
Go ahead, Chris.
Mayor Pro Tem, I just wanted to point out too that through the administrative funds that were set aside when we received ARPA funds, that finance is hiring someone that's going to work directly on oversight within the city staff on these particular programs. So there will be that staffing component that will be working directly on these grants, oversight, and evaluations, and that component, in addition to anything else that we end up bringing on board as well.
It's good to know. And then Councillor Bencomo.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you both again. Yeah, just a couple of questions that sort of popped up while my colleagues were asking their own questions.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Gandara and I recently met with the New Mexico Restaurant Association, who I think, you know, if you haven't been in communications with them about this, would be a good partner as
Yes.
well. You know, they did mention to us that they were having a really hard time, you know, hiring folks after the pandemic, you know, in the hospitality sector. And so just wondering where those conversations are and if you've had them in relation to any of these programs.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Bencomo. I have, and there's a couple of areas that we're looking at working in partnership with them. The first is they expressed an interest in creating a separate apprenticeship program specifically for their industry. They really want to build long-term career opportunities for our residents rather than just you know, a minimum wage or less than minimum wage paying job. They want to keep folks here, and they want to pay them a livable wage. The second, we did mention this program to them and asking them, once we get the green light, to be one of those partners, one of those business partners to participate in it, to be willing to allow for job showing opportunities, to be able to talk about the culture of what it is to work in their industry. So we've definitely had those conversations with them, and they are very interested.
Okay, great. That's really important. And I think, I don't mean to get too political about some of these things either, but sometimes I feel like for those of us who are proponents of higher minimum wage and sometimes childcare facilities and restaurants, we don't always see eye to eye on these kinds of things. So I do also wonder how we better navigate those conversations in terms of well-paying jobs, paid sick leave, those kinds of things.
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Bencomo, those have been part of the questions and conversations that we've been asking of them. If they are interested in long-term sustainability of a workforce, there needs to be a wage that allows them to do that, right? And so they're talking about, you know, through the pre-apprenticeship program to create credentials and certifications that will allow the justification for an increase in wage, right? So they're definitely interested in having those conversations now, and we're taking full advantage of that.
Okay, thank you. And then just the last thing I wanted to flag from that meeting we had with them, one of the restaurant owners talked about something they've had a lot of success with was hiring folks who are re-entering citizens, so re-entering after being incarcerated for a long time. And you know, the biggest piece of avoiding recidivism is having a job and housing. And so I just do want to flag that I think there's a segment of the population that should have also a focus as we're talking about, you know, like single parents or low-income folks, that folks who are re-entering, I think, is also an important population to consider.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Bencomo, the Transitional Job Training Program is the program that we're hoping to expand to include those individuals that we know would definitely benefit from that training, and that demographic has been part of the conversation.
Awesome, thank you. Also, I totally agree about Ryan Steinmetz. Thank you.
Councillor Flores.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the reentry aspect, Deloitte did a study on people. Were you there? We were there.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's see, it's people who have been trafficked, the most unemployable people. And I thought, women, my little brown face isn't going to get employed. And I was really surprised to hear that it was not that. It was, it was people who are trafficked, people who have been in prison, and I I always forget the third one,
Yeah.
but there were 3 that were really a surprise to me, and they're not employable because they don't have a resume.
Yeah.
And so that's something for employers to look at too, to determine, their workforce, or to give people a break.
Yes.
So I don't know if that's been within the purview of what we're going after here, but I think those are factors that definitely have to be addressed.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Flores, I couldn't agree with you more. And I was actually looking for the
The
handout that they provided, because I do feel like they would benefit from not just the transitional job training program, but others as well. So they're definitely on the radar.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you, Chris, as well.
Thank you, Councilor Flores. Any other questions on the dais? Anybody have any feedback out in the audience? Yes, please make your way down and state your name.
Good afternoon. I am Gentry Roberts. I'm the Executive Director of the Southern New Mexico Apprenticeship Program, the Electrical Trade School. I did want to just include a little bit on the Electrical Trade School and the apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship slide.
Absolutely. We're happy that you're here.
Brian Eichelberger is our current board president, but also one of our contractor and employers in the city. So just to give you a little background, we are of the other four-year program. Partnering with the ACE program is a great opportunity for us as well. Really want to create that exposure. Pre-apprenticeship is a major buzzword right now, especially in the public schools, trying to get the trades exposed at the public school level, really trying to introduce that. So we have a lot of great opportunities at IEC level. Like Irene had mentioned, we're one of over 50 chapters nationwide, so we've got a national curriculum. We run off of the National Electrical Code, and we do a lot of the training there. With that being said, pre-apprenticeship would be huge in the public schools in just introducing a lot of this conversation about the hands-on, the curriculum that we have as far as introduction into tool identification and usage, material usage and identification in those sectors. We are electrical specific, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it can't go across, hand in hand across the trades. So it'd be a great start and a great opportunity. So we appreciate this and the opportunity to be here. Would you like to add?
Sure. She volunteered me for it. I really wasn't planning on anything, but I think.
Please state your name for the record.
Brian Eichelberger. Yeah, appreciate that.
You can, yes, and the podium if you like. It's
Podium goes
a
up? button
to the side. There you go.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You must have had a great electrician install that.
That was very nice.
I think I'm in a good position to speak to a lot of the things that I've heard that are concerns from all of you. Number one, I get to see very closely the difference that these programs make for young men and women, young people and older people, those re-entering as well. I personally have been able to hire probably over the last several years I would say a dozen or more people who have been in prison have come back out, then get their journeyman's license. Now they have families. Now they are a very beneficial part of the community and have turned their lives completely around thanks to this nonprofit organization, which is about education in the trades. There's a lot of different trades out there that all could benefit from this, and I'd like to see them benefit as well, not just the electrical trade in itself, and the trades in general, just getting the attention that they deserve. Because it's a good, honest living that these people are then able to add something to not just their own lives, but those around them. It plays perfectly hand in hand with what I hope the City of Las Cruces will continue to do, which is to build an economy that our young people can then be a part of and that can continue to thrive and then continue to refuel these same things over and over and just I can't say enough good things. I personally went through the apprenticeship program myself right out of high school. My son, who's about to graduate, he'll be doing the same thing. So that's a testament to how much I believe in it. My brother, who went through it, is now an electrical engineer. So it's a great jumping off point, as mentioned. It leads to so many other good things. And so we appreciate you considering us for this, and we are very hopeful that we can utilize these funds in the best way possible for our community.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's been 8 years ago, we put together an apprenticeship where it was a part of council's priority, right? And we started with our water tech program at utilities, and it's been a great opportunity. So I'm so thankful that we have the money to be able to do that. But Leanne and grants people, I think it's so important that we look at other grant opportunities, right, to expand this. And I see Leanne put her thumbs up. It's an important thing. We need to keep our youth here, our students here. We train them up and they leave for better paying jobs. And I think we're all very committed to this. So thank you for being here, both of you. Anybody else? Do I see any?
Hello, my name is Jerome Hanway. I am the apprentice coordinator. I had to lower it because I am the apprentice program coordinator for the state for Southern New Mexico. So we're partnering with Irene to make this happen, and the school districts and the IEC schools. So we're very excited about the program. And to talk about one other thing before, where you were mentioning, Ms. Flores, about the doing resumes and building all of that for re-entry. Workforce does that. We offer those services for free. Right now, when any, we call them justice involved, come to our services, we actually cater to them and help them because they're one of our most at risk. So we definitely try to do that. We also bond and ensure the federal, not just federal, but any justice involved, will insure them so they can go back into the workforce. There's also tax breaks for individuals that hire those individuals. So there are programs already set up that we do offer every day for justice involved, for veterans. So we do those programs already through the state. So those are things that we're definitely excited about, especially with Irene, that we try to partner. Some of these programs probably aren't very familiar or recognized by anybody. So through our partnership with the city, we're definitely trying to expand that and push so we can push that in the community so they can understand that as well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jerome, for being here and for your comments. I thank you for reminding us about our veterans. I know my son was able to go into workforce connections in Albuquerque, and he had this long resume, and they're like, it's kind of long, you might want it, and they helped him through, and it was a great service, and he was able to land a good job. So I think and they paid special attention to the veterans, right? He's a veteran. So I think that's another Irene population that we definitely want to see our veterans, because it's so hard to leave the military and come back into the public, if you will, the community. It's a whole different scenario, and there's so many of our veterans that are suffering from postpartum depression and trauma and whatnot, and I think it makes it a little more difficult, right, to, I don't know why I have baby in the brain. What is that? I don't get it. I said postpartum depression.
We all go, yeah, postpartum.
I meant depression.
PTSD.
And PTSD. Thank you. Yes. Anyway, so, but I appreciate that. It's another cohort that we should definitely be paying attention to very much. So appreciate it, Mr. Jerome.
All right, thank you.
You were talking about your son, and so postpartum.
Probably because I want him to have a baby, a grandchild.
Pretty soon, you'll see.
I hope not, but anyway. Hi.
Good afternoon,
Hi.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council. My name is Nubia Martinez. I think I'm going to pull this up a little bit. Can you guys hear me good? Okay. So my name is Nubia Martinez. I am the Housing Director at La Casa. So as I was very pleased to hear this. So one of our performance is to make sure within our temporary housing is that we can find them employment, because it is temporary, it's only up to 24 months. So helping our survivors of domestic violence, their housing has changed due to domestic violence. They do go into our shelters. They also provide non-residential services, but our housing and our job is to be able to get them stabilized in their own housing. So we do help them with that, and I know there's a huge need for Project One, especially for our projects and for our survivors to become successful and be able to maintain their own housing. So that is what I wanted to say. I look forward to it. I know that the stipends is going to be something that our survivors are going to really benefit from it. We're looking at some barriers sometimes that they have. We talked about possibly when their car breaks down, that stipend would be really good for them and be able to attain and maintain their job. So I'm really looking forward to it and pleased to be able to work in this project with them. And I know like I mentioned, to be able to work in this project with them. And I know like I mentioned, our survivors will benefit from it.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you just mentioning our survivors. Yeah, yet another cohort of people. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Hi, Davin.
Mayor Pro Tem, councilors, I was a little hesitant to come up here because Irene's presentation was so awesome. I didn't want to ruin the quality of it, but let me just say, I think the way the ED staff presented this is very prudent. It looks at a lot of different challenges that are out there. It looks at a lot of different opportunities to meet those challenges. So it really diversifies the dollars. And I just think it's a smart approach overall. And I think it hits the three things we talk about on a regular basis that are challenges with the workforce. It's higher wages. It's how do we create more opportunities to get rid of the impediments of joining the workforce. And quite frankly, just Councilor Graham, as you said, and we're dealing with this on every conversation, it seems like, with the manufacturer, is dealing with the jobs of the future and what they actually mean and what they require. And in many cases, industry is still trying to figure that out right now. And it's interesting what we talk to manufacturers about, especially within advanced manufacturing. There's a unique opportunity. Although there are technical skills required, I think the real opportunity is they also tell us at the same time they just need people who are in a position to want to work and learn, because they're dealing with equipment that no one has ever worked on in the world before. So whether you have an engineering degree or you're just out of high school, they're willing to train as long as you're willing to learn. And I think those are some opportunities that might be, once in generational time that we're going to see these things. And I don't know where things went array, but I will tell you, just from a personal thing, I remember my mom was an administrative assistant at Albuquerque High School. I was 4 years old. And she used to drop us off, me and my brother, at a care facility at the school. I don't know what happened to that. And when we talk about workforce and I start asking about those things, no one seems to have a memory. Councilor Flores, you talked about, companies having on-site care facilities. 20 years ago, when I first got into economic development at the state level, there was a program out there that encouraged and incentivized companies to open in-house facilities. I don't know what happened to that either, and I ask about that, those who might have a memory of it, and no one seems to do. So anyway, and we used to have trades programs, right, in high school, and kids would graduate with certain skill sets that they could take. I don't know what happened to all these, but we need to get back to them. And I think this is an approach to really find out what's going to work here, and then, double down on that after that. And we'll find out which of these programs really shines and which really work for our community, but I think it's the opportunity to learn, discover, and grow from it. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Devin. I remember, 2 or 3 years ago, sitting in a meeting with you, speaking to childcare and sort of what the possibilities could be if we had childcare in settings like the city, county. these big manufacturing, these companies and such, and look at, here we are. I just think it's an opportunity to really explore and kind of shoot for the, there's no limit. I think it's really, really, shoot for the stars, as Councilor Flores said. It's a really cool opportunity for us, and to really be innovative and creative in the way we're looking at this. And I'll just say, to me, demographically, we have a lot of single mamas in this city, and they're struggling. And I'd really like to see, more female electricians and, sort of, building our childcare. I think industry is super important, and particularly around paying them, they do so much to prepare our kids, and I'm a recipient of that. They took care of my kids in ways, while I worked, and I always knew that they were being taken good care of, and they learned such valuable skills, there, and they do such amazing work, and so we should pay them, their worth. And so, anyway, thanks, Devin. Anybody else? Miss Mary, you're moving around in your chair. I'm so glad. How are you? I haven't seen you in a while.
Yes, I'm good, thank you.
Good.
So my name is Mary Ulrich, Doñana Community College, and I just wanted to, I'm really bad at doing things like this, but here I am. And I just wanted to say that as a member of the community, or as a representative of the college, I wanted to thank the city for the partnership, because I think we're making a lot of strides. And I recently got back from a workforce development conference on National Council for Workforce Education, and we are well represented there. I mean, the programs that people are talking about are these programs. And so it's really nice to see that we're in a peer group that we can present. I presented and I talked about our program. I also like to see how the city is really expanding efforts for educational opportunities for a term that I learned, and I introduce it to you all, the new majority learner. We always talk about non-traditional students at the college level, but really non-traditional students are the majority of our students. And so there's a term, new majority learners, are single parents. They're justice-involved individuals, veterans, people with disabilities. So that's who we're serving, and DACC is proud to be a member. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mary, for all your work. We go back a long ways, and I appreciate all that you do in workforce. I really do. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, seeing none. Sorry. I do want to say that Councilor Corin is not here today because a good portion of the funding is going possibly to DACC, and she felt it was a conflict. And so I was remiss in not saying that earlier. And so that's why she's not on the dais this afternoon. Councilor Graham, did you want to say something? Is that what you're saying?
It seems that Councilor Bencoma was going to make the same note that you just did.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you. So great work session, Irene. Thank you so much for your presentation, Chris, for the work that you all are doing on this. This is a huge lift, but a very important one, so we appreciate you so much. Thank you, Ifo. Yes, clap. When can we expect this to come to council?
Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for that question. We hope to come back next month, November 6th, to present this in the form of a resolution so we can get this going.
Great, Irene. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I need a motion to adjourn. Move
So
to
moved.
adjourn.
Or second.
Motion made by Flores, second by Councilor Abeta. Christine?
This is on the motion to adjourn the work session. Councilor Beta? Yes. Councilor Graham? Yes. Councilor Bencomo?
Yes.
Councilor Corin is absent. Councilor Flores?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
And Mayor is absent. Mayor Pro Tem.
This is the agenda setting memo for October 16, 2023. Christine, you ready?
Yep.
1, non-consent.
1 non-consent.
2, non-consent.
2 non-consent.
3, consent.
3 consent.
4, non-consent.
4 non-consent.
5, non-consent.
5 non-consent.
6, consent.
6 consent.
7, consent.
7 consent.
8, non-consent.
8 non-consent.